Such stories not only challenge one's imagination, but also make you question your perception of reality regarding what you hear. Nobody knew where she came from. She was a person full of mystery, with neither a family nor a known past. She only knocked on doors, begged, and vanished into the darkness at night. The villagers who saw this woman as a ray of hope against the calamities that had befallen them did not yet know that she would actually bring about the end of everything. From that moment on, everyone began asking one another the same question: who was Belkis, or what was she in reality? Today, I will recount an incident that took place in a village in the Mutki district of Bitlis, a story that pushes the limits of human experience. For a long time, no healthy baby was born in this village. Some were born with one eye, some with missing limbs, and others with skin covered in snake-like scales. A solitary woman named Belkız Ana, whose origins were unknown, had become the sole hope for the desperate villagers. She appeared to be a sorceress, yet she was, in truth, the very embodiment of a great darkness that had descended upon the village's fate. This story unfolded in the 1960s in the Mutki district of Bitlis, a region known for hosting ancient civilizations and its rich history. At that time, the number of villages in the area was quite small compared to today, and all these villages shared a common destiny. No healthy babies were being born. All the babies who were born had advanced cleft palates or were born without arms or legs. Some came into the world with a single eye, while others had their eye sockets covered with sealed skin. The skin of some babies was also structured differently from normal, resembling snake skin. Every newborn exhibited a significant anomaly, and this situation was a great source of sorrow for the villagers. Faced with this tragedy, the women in the village would gather together during childbirth, praying hopefully, wishing for at least one baby to be born healthy. However, no matter what they did, no baby was born normally. This continuing misfortune in the village drove the mothers to despair, and, following the proverb, "A drowning man will cling to a snake," they began seeking remedies from witches and fortune-tellers. It was at this exact point that events took an inextricable turn. There was a woman who visited the village regularly, an enigmatic and unsettling figure. With her dark, sallow skin resembling an ancient tree, her protruding bones, sunken cheeks, and deep-set black eyes, this woman wandered as if carrying the world's sorrow on her face. With her presence, the shadow of darkness in the village grew even larger. Her yellowish teeth were distinctly visible between her withdrawn, dried lips. She wore a long black garment, something between a cloak and a shroud, reaching down to the ground, and as she walked, its hem virtually dragged on the dirt. The ends of the skirts, trailing in dust and dirt, created an unpleasant sight. The woman was quite repulsive and emitted a very heavy odor. Her story, however, was intriguing. The woman would come to the village regularly, going door to door, asking people for help. Whatever people had at that moment, some gave flour, some sugar or milk, others helped with bread. Everyone provided support as best they could. But the woman presented such an alarming and unsettling sight that most people avoided dealing with her for long. No one invited her into their home, nor did they allow her to sit outside their door. Sometimes they would even make an effort not to speak or make eye contact, quickly giving her help and then closing the door. This woman had another quality that aroused shyness. For example, when a baby was crying in a house and the woman came and knocked on the door, the baby would suddenly fall silent. Or the animals roaming in the yard would freeze as the woman approached, stopping their movement. When the woman entered, she emitted an oppressive and disturbing odor, like death. For these reasons, the villagers preferred to stay as far away from this woman as possible. Nevertheless, they took care not to send the woman away empty-handed. Due to their custom of not turning away a visitor, they tried to help the woman in some way, despite feeling uneasy. One day, the woman was again wandering through the village, collecting items and putting them into her cloth bundle. Then she sat down in the shade of a tree and watched the passing men and women for a long time. As the air was getting dark toward evening, she headed toward the headman's house and began to follow him. However, the headman was unaware of this. The moment the headman entered his house, the woman knocked on the door right after him. When the headman opened the door, he saw this woman. The headman recognized the woman, but they had no closeness or conversation. He remembered her as someone who had been coming and going for years to beg in the village. "What do you want?" he asked. The woman said she needed help. When the headman asked what she wanted, the woman stated that she wanted to come inside to rest. Under normal circumstances, if someone else made such a request, nobody would accept. But the village headman, being aware that he was responsible for finding solutions to everyone's problems, reluctantly accepted the request. After the woman entered, the headman's wife saw her and was naturally not happy about it at all. What could the poor woman say to her husband? The man had brought the woman inside, so she said nothing more. Then they offered the woman sherbet and pilaf. The woman ate her meal calmly. During this time, the headman started a casual conversation. "Where are you from? Who are your people?" The dark, gaunt woman, who had not lifted her head from the ground until that moment, straightened her head, looked directly into the headman's eyes, and said clearly, "I am nobody, and I am from no one." The atmosphere instantly froze. Hair stood on end. What did that mean?
The headman was surprised, but didn't want to prolong the subject. "What is your name?" he asked. The woman replied, "Belkiz." The headman, intending to end the conversation, said, "All right, you are Belkiz from Bitlis then." However, the woman saw this as a turning point for conversation and turned back to the headman, adding, "You are aware of what is happening in your village, are you not?" The headman was astonished. "What do you mean?" The woman began to explain. "Are you not aware that all your babies are being born sick or disabled?" These words disturbed the headman. It was impossible for him not to be aware of this, but still he replied with an angry tone, "Yes, I am aware. What is it to you? What are you going to do?" The woman continued with composure. "The women of your village have had so many spells cast, they have gone to so many sorcerers and fortune-tellers for their babies to be born healthy. Your village is cursed. No baby of yours will ever be born healthy again. but I am the only person who can help you." The headman was taken aback for a moment, staring at the woman frozen. What she said made no sense. It seemed to lack context. Then he collected himself and said reluctantly, "Fine. Have you finished your meal? Enjoy your meal. Now I wish you a good day." He politely saw the woman out of the house. However, the unease inside him would not subside. After all, he was the headman of that village. He was aware of the complaints that had been going on for a long time in the village, especially the unhappiness of the women. He had also seen something firsthand from his own wife. The village women were constantly chasing after fortune tellers and sorcerers, seeking a solution to their troubles. But these troubles never found a remedy. As the headman turned over what he had heard in his mind, he decided to share the matter with the village elders. The next evening, while they were sitting at the village coffee house, he brought up the subject. "A woman came to my house yesterday," he said. "She told us we were cursed, and she claimed that only she could solve this problem. However, as is well known, the things men discuss among themselves often do not stay confined to that space. And yet they say it is the women who gossip." When the men returned home from the village, they naturally shared with their wives what the headman had recounted at the coffee house. They brought up the topic during conversation by saying, "The headman told us something like this today." And in this way, an idea formed in the minds of some women. This idea transformed into a belief that the strange and peculiar woman wandering the village could be the solution to the unhealthy births. As the saying goes, a drowning man will cling to a snake. However, this situation did not immediately result in them going to the woman. Initially, this rumor simply persisted, spreading from mouth to mouth. But when the birth of sick and disabled babies continued in the village, the situation took a different turn. One day, the woman came back to the village. As Belkiz walked around the village collecting her items, some of the women followed her. Their purpose was clear: to find out where this woman lived and where she went. The women followed Belkiz without being noticed, and after a while, they saw her arrive at a hut. The women who witnessed this continued to watch from a distance. Then they encountered a strange sight. Different women were gathered and waiting in the garden of Belkiz's hut. It was as if this was not an ordinary place, but a sacred site. It seemed that Belkiz had wandered the village and begged, but her house was overflowing with people. The women did not leave immediately. They pulled aside to a corner and continued to watch what was happening. They watched with curiosity, wondering who these people were and what was going on here. As the day set, the air grew dark, and finally, a remarkable event took place. One of the waiting women handed the baby she had brought to Belkiz. Belkiz took the baby and began murmuring prayers in a language unknown to the villagers. At that moment, the village women looked at the baby and noticed something. The baby had no eyes. Where the eyes should have been, there was only a face covered with skin, looking as if the forehead and the eye area were fused together. In the meantime, Belkız took the baby and lifted him slightly, holding him with his feet facing forward, and continued her prayers. In the face of this bizarre yet mysterious scene, the women continued to look at her, both surprised and worried. Let's assume a prayer ritual was being performed. A woman was murmuring something, speaking words in a strange language. At the same time, she gently stroked the baby's eyes with her thumbs. Then they opened the baby's abdomen. The baby was laid on the ground, his abdomen was opened, and some symbols or writings began to be inscribed on it.
During this process, she gathered the other mothers with their babies around her. While the woman stood, the other mothers knelt before her, repeating what she was saying. The woman would say something, and the mothers would repeat the same words sequentially. After a while, low voices and murmurs began to be heard in the environment. Then the woman swaddled the baby again and returned him to his mother. Right at that moment, something strange happened. First, a strong wind emerged, and then lightning suddenly began to flash in the sky. A dark shadow descended upon the spot where the baby and mother were. As if arriving with the wind, this shadow snatched the baby from the mother's arms and disappeared rapidly. At that moment, screams and fearful cries echoed among the women. In an unnerving silence, the woman named Belkis said nothing, swept her skirt and entered the house, and the door closed loudly behind her. The women looked at each other in shock and fear. They couldn't understand what had just happened. A couple who witnessed the scene in the garden described those moments as follows. "We were there with the babies, and we believed this woman would heal the babies. She first told us to stand up and then to kneel. Prayers poured from her mouth and we repeated them. Then a shadow came and took the baby away." After this incident, people anxiously began asking Belkız Ana questions. "Where is the baby? What happened? You said you would heal the baby, but now the baby is gone." Belkız Ana calmly gave the following instructions. "Go home and perform some rituals. If you carry out these rituals correctly, your baby will return healthy and your future children will also be healthy." According to the father's statement, the instructions were as follows. The people were to leave their homes the next day at the morning call to prayer. They would hunt a pig and collect the blood of the slaughtered pig in a jar or container. They would skin the pig and let the hide dry. Then, every day, they would drink a wooden spoonful of this blood. They would take the dried hide to Belkız Ana and hand it over. Belkız Ana would write inscriptions in an incomprehensible language on this dry hide. Then this inscribed dried hide would be taken home and spread over the pillow every evening. At the heart of the story lies a highly unusual and sorrowful tale. The rituals people desperately clung to, combined with hope, turn into a sequence of events that end in tragedy. The story focuses on one family, depicting a series of unfortunate events and the intense pain felt in the face of these occurrences. At the beginning of this chain of events is the painful truth that a mother's first baby was born without arms and legs. In time, a second pregnancy occurred, and although hopes bloomed again, the second baby was also born disabled. Moreover, this time he came with a different abnormality. The baby's skin was scaly, with a strange structure resembling snakeskin. In this situation, the family decided to contact someone named Belkız Ana, believing that Belkız Ana could find a solution to their struggles. The father, who visited Belkız Ana with his wife, recounted the situation with the joy of having reached a hopeful helper. Belkız Ana, who made no material demands on the couple, asked them for something simple yet strange, to bring her a pig hide for the next day. The father, to fulfill Belkız Ana's request, hunted a large pig, skinned it, and completed his preparations. When they arrived the next day, Belkız Ana invited the family inside her house. The fact that this woman, who normally performed her procedures outside, caught the family's attention. They took their baby to Belkız Ana, and as things began, everything took an even stranger turn. Examining the baby, Belkisana stated that he was cursed and, using the pig hide, wrapped the baby inside and swaddled him. Immediately after, she posed this critical question to them: "Are you willing to sacrifice this baby so that your subsequent babies may be healthy?"
In a heartbreaking moment, the couple, drowning in grief and false hope, answered yes to this question. They were asked to repeat this answer out loud 3 times, and with each repetition, their decision became sharper. Right at that moment, something extraordinary happened. The door of the room suddenly burst open with a loud noise. A dark, chilling shadow, like the wind, flooded the room. This shadow descended upon the baby in Belkisana's hands, and in the blink of an eye, the baby completely vanished. Following this unexpected event, everyone in the room panicked, screaming and trying to understand what had happened. However, Belkız Ana, in the midst of all this chaos, acted with unshakable composure, keeping the situation under control. After the shadow disappeared, she gave the family the necessary instructions to continue the ritual. The ritual required them to drink pig blood and sleep on a pig hide with inscriptions written on it. Despite adhering strictly to these rituals, their baby did not return. The only remaining evidence was the statements given to the gendarmerie by both the family and the surrounding witnesses. For the father and mother, this process was not just filled with heartbreak from start to finish, but also an intense trial where desperation clashed with hope. In the end, the family left behind not only their lost children, but also their inner peace and trust. With these statements, the events transformed into a tragedy that makes one question their beliefs, leaving behind dozens of secrets waiting to be resolved. As the villagers learned, these rituals were being performed regularly. Whatever was said was faithfully followed. What else could they do? The babies were gone. Therefore, they believed they had no choice but to obey the woman's instructions literally for the babies to return. However, events became more complicated and incomprehensible after this. Not only did the gone babies fail to return, but the babies born afterward were also not born healthy.
All the babies born continued to be problematic, sick, or disabled. The situation was getting progressively worse. Disturbing occurrences began in the homes, especially towards the morning, close to the call to prayer time. Footsteps, sounds of running, or noises resembling people fighting were heard inside the houses. This community, known to constantly drink pig blood in their homes, still tried to cope with what was happening. Because desperation makes a person accept everything, they want to believe with a glimmer of hope. With nothing else to cling to, the villagers were compelled to continue this situation. Realizing that nothing was getting better as time passed, the villagers finally gathered and made a decision. The women and men, especially the mothers and fathers, wanted to go to Belkisana's house and demand answers. "Where are our children?" they asked. Having lost hope for their newborns to be healthy, they were now seeking answers for the disappearance of their existing children. When they arrived at Belkisana's house as a group, the people they had always seen in the garden were no longer there. The garden was empty, and although they knew people should normally be there, they couldn't see anyone. When they knocked on the door, no sound came from inside either. This situation alarmed the villagers. The village headman, who was there initially, was the first to visit Belkisana's house. So they went to the headman and explained the situation. They told him that Belkisana was nowhere to be seen and that her house looked empty.
Following this, they returned to Belkisana's house with the headman. Normally, the headman should not have immediately entered in such a situation and should have waited for the gendarmerie. However, the headman was suffering from great remorse. He blamed himself, believing that he had brought this woman to the village and that the responsibility for what happened rested with him. If he had not taken Belkisana seriously from the beginning or had managed to prevent those who initiated these events, none of this might have happened. Burdened by these thoughts, he broke the door and entered without waiting for the gendarmerie.
The scene they encountered when they entered the house was quite chilling. The house they had frequented just a few weeks or months ago for rituals now felt abandoned. Thick layers of dust had accumulated on all the belongings. The room had become a dilapidated place, as if no one had visited it for thousands of years. Compared to the house they had witnessed before, this place had taken on a completely different appearance. This place looked like a location that no one had stepped foot in for years, completely abandoned, once lively but now shrouded in silence. Nothing was as it used to be, neither the memories nor the place itself. The belongings inside the house, their locations, and the rooms where they were found gave the impression of a space detached from its owner, unused for a long time. It was as if this place had turned into a terrifying realm from another time. Unable to comprehend this situation, the people immediately went to the gendarmerie and recounted their experiences one by one. They detailed the events they had gone through, what they had seen, and what they had felt. After listening carefully to these accounts, the gendarmerie, as per protocol, created an incident report and prepared an official record. An investigation was launched in light of this information, and the curiosity and unease among the people intensified. They pointed out that the central figure of the incident was a strange woman whose name resembled Belkız, referred to as Belkız Ana among the villagers. By describing this mystical or ominous woman, they requested help from the gendarmerie. Subsequently, search efforts were initiated, and this woman was diligently sought from village to village, town to town. However, the searches were fruitless. Not the slightest trace of this woman or the missing babies could be found.
With each passing day, the fear and astonishment deepened among the people. At this point, it was impossible to reach any trace of Belkisana's existence or the traces she left behind. However, this is such a region, an ancient piece of land where many civilizations, communities, and different cultures have come and gone over centuries. It is believed that many such mysterious stories have occurred from the past to the present. The incident seems to be one of the historical legends of the region. The people who settled here at the time built their lives here, but apparently they also left behind some secrets. According to a widespread belief among the villagers, this woman called Belkisana might actually be a demon, an evil spirit, or a jinn remaining from ancient civilizations. The belief suggests that the women turning to sorcery by seeking different paths instead of praying to God might have activated this entity. As a result of mothers wishing for healthy babies straying down the wrong paths, this ancient entity might have become angered and taken the babies of the village. The villagers gradually began to believe in this idea more strongly. As the story spread by word of mouth, the idea settled in their minds that darker events occur much more frequently in the depths of the worlds we believe to be real. Perhaps such stories, which some of us might consider fairy tales or fiction, actually take place much more often and closer than we anticipate.